Chapter 9. A Traitor's Ballad. He killed Rayan Peaceman? Farah's question was as much an accusation as it was an exclamation. Killed them? Like dead? She reiterated. All of them. All 10 Peacemen. Believe me. It wasn't pretty, and it wasn't even a close fight, Hela explained. He saved my life. They were going to cut me into pieces. But that means the quarantine. They're looking for who did it, Farah gasped. They're going to find him. They're going to figure out it was you and Skature. Then they're going to finish what the Peacemen started, Hela completed Farah's thought. Senna's chin trembled. What do we do? Can Skature stop it? Hela saw the fear in her little brother's face. I'm sure that's exactly what he's talking to Goden about right now, she reassured him. Let's go back into the common and see what they think, Finn. The 3 Thutan youngsters stood up from where they were gathered around the crack in Hela's floor. Once they arrived back in the common, Goden and Skature were no longer on the bench to the side. They seemed to be mingling around the gathering point for morning blessings. Hela caught the end of the last sentence Skature spoke to Goden before the 2 men shifted their attention to her and the others. It's our best shot, and glorious beyond compare. Scatter's eyes lit up. Well, if it isn't my favorite young Thutans, where have you 3 been hiding for the last while? He asked, focusing on Hela in particular. We told Farah what's going on, Hela bit her lip. We had to, Skature. She's stuck in the same quarantine with us, and who knows if they're going to blame her too. They're Rayans after all, and Skature held up his hand. Hela, my dear girl, you're right. I was going to tell her myself after consulting Goden. So you saved me both some breath and time. Skature, Farah said, is there anything we can do? Those dogs are going to come in here with force if they figure out it was you. Farah, young miss, these walls have eyes and ears. I'd be happy to bring you 3 up to speed with our options, but do me a favor first and turn your back to the call doors like Goden and I to make it harder for our eavesdroppers. All 3 youngsters stiffened up at this information, but they did as Skature instructed. Oh, very good, you 3, very good. Now listen carefully, he lowered his voice. Goden and I have been considering what we can... Just then, the asperite floors lit up beneath their feet, compelling them all to their attention spots facing the call doors. The doors began to open. A single figure appeared behind them, still obscured by the shadow of the causeway roof. The figure started walking in, but the walk was more of a march. A familiar march. A Thutan march. Hela strained her eyes to make out the face of the figure. Somehow she knew this Thutan. Then, the light of the midday sun washed over the figure's face. Talen! She called out, breaking the attention protocol of still silence. A disembodied voice responded. It was the same voice that had called the quarantine orders earlier that morning. Thutan, silence! Hela shut up, her eyes darting to where the voice had sounded. Talen, their recently swapped-out cullmate, came to a stop where the morning peacemen usually stood. He looked as confused as the 5 others staring back at him. Hela noticed Skature seemed to poise himself ever so slightly. How did he do that? She wondered. The call doors began to close, corralling 6 Thutans inside it instead of the usual 5. The doors thumped shut, and the blue of the asperite floors disappeared, releasing everyone from its hold. This time, it was Goden who was the first to call out to their friend. Talen, you're back! He rushed towards him and grabbed both of his shoulders in welcome. The rest of his previous callmates did the same. Where did they take you, Talen? Hela blurted out as she greeted him. Did they put you in another call? In a prison chamber? In an enlightenment chamber? Farah asked, bombarding Talen with questions. He gazed at them all without saying a word. Talen never said much anyways, but he seemed dumbstruck. Goden stepped in to speak for him. Talen, my friend, we're all so happy to see you again, and in what looks like good health, he began. We would love to know what happened to you since they took you from here, but first of all, allow me to introduce you to your replacement. Goden pointed to the man Talen had looked at moments before. This is Skature. He's a good man and someone we've welcomed as our own since his arrival. Hello there, Talen, son of Grom. I'm pleased to meet you when it's not just in passing, Skature said. Goden put an arm around Talen's shoulders and one on his chest. Come, sit down, please. Take your time and tell us what happened. He began to walk Talen to the common table. The others followed. They each took a seat, all except for Skature, who remained standing due to a sudden lack of chairs. Hela now spoke up. How are you, Talen? Are you okay? How did the Rayans treat you? Good, came his one-word reply. I'm relieved to hear it, Goden added. Please, tell us what you can remember from your time away. Cull 19 is under some sort of quarantine, so we have time to hear your tales. Talen looked down at the table while the others waited in pregnant silence. Then he spoke. They took me, Goden. I'm not sure where, but it was for a long time. I was alone. Then they brought me back. Skature was the first one to pry for more information. Oh, I can appreciate a man of few words, though if I could be so bold, was there anything else you can recall about your sojourn outside of the cull? It was a chamber. There was a policeman outside the door. He brought me my meal. I can remember that. But I didn't do anything, and they didn't make me go anywhere until they brought me back here. Skature crossed his arms and frowned. I thought they would have just switched you into the cull they took Skature from, Hela said. Why would they hold you somewhere else? Senna added to her question in a small voice. And why didn't they take Skature back out of the cull when they brought you back? You read my mind, dear boy, Skature said. I was fully expecting them to try that just now. Goden interjected. The major difference between when they first swapped you two and now is the quarantine. I wonder if that means they'll be corralling more Thutons in this cull for the meantime. Nah, I don't think so, Goden. If the quarantine is for the reason we suspect, the last thing they'd want to do is allow more Thutons to congregate in one spot. Remember, the culls keep us separated. I've never seen a cull with more than 5 Thutons before, so this is very strange. Very strange indeed. What do you think the quarantine is about, Goden? Talen asked. Goden sighed. Well, he was always a good worker on blessings. They all knew Talen was limited in what he understood. It may have felt like you were gone for a long time, Talen, he began, but it's only been a couple of days. A lot of things have happened in that time, and we believe some of them may have caused this unexpected quarantine. Farah, less cautious with her choice of words, interjected. People died, Talen, Rayans, and they're looking for who did it. Both Goden and Skature frowned at Farah. What? She shrugged. He's in the same situation as us now. Why shouldn't I tell him? Farah, dear, Skature started, we're all trying to figure out this strange series of events. Would you mind if Goden and I speak further with your friend here to find out more? Farah huffed. I mean, sure, I guess, but I'm going to sit right here while you two do it. She crossed her arms to mimic Skature's posture. Oh, that's fine. I would prefer it, in fact. He turned his attention back to Talen. I'd be happy to share our theories, of course, but first, can you remember how far they walked you before they locked you up? If you had to guess, was it close? Far? To the inner round, maybe? Talen seemed unsure, shifting in his seat. Not too far, but sort of far. Skature's mouth twisted at that response, but before he could probe further, Goden stepped in. Talen, we know things must have been very confusing and frightening for you while you were gone. Can you remember anything the policemen around you said? Talen seemed to settle and began to ponder. Everyone watched and waited in silence. Then he answered. Yes, I think so. The policeman who took me back here said other policemen died. I heard him say that. He did? Skature asked. Why would he say that to you? Talen kept looking at Goden when he answered. Do you know who did it, Goden? How would we know, Talen? We've all been here under quarantine this whole time. Talen then looked at Hela and asked her, Hela, do you know? He said it was bad. The policeman said that. Horrible. Like the Thuton you saw chopped up in the inner round. Who could do that, Hela? Hela straightened up, looking at Skature with concern in her eyes, and then back to Talen. Talen, I never told you about that. Skature tilted his head to the side, narrowing his gaze at Talen. Yes, you did, Talen shot back. The day it happened, you told me before the sleep floors, remember? No, I didn't. I'm certain. Well, maybe it was in the understreet. I get confused, Talen suggested, beginning to squirm in his seat again. No, Talen, Goden said. You were with me the whole time, and Hela never spoke a word to you that day. It doesn't matter, Talen yelled. She told me sometime, somewhere. Just tell me who killed those policemen, Hela. You have to know, 'cause how else would you know what the quarantine is about? The cadence and inflection in his voice shifted at that last outburst, like someone changing accents. Skature's eyes began to glow red. Talen suddenly saw him. Skature, red-eyed. He stood up, backed away from the group and pointed at Skature. There! Him! It's him! He shouted in a different voice, as if talking to someone who wasn't there. In that instant, the floors lit back up. All 5 Thutons marched to their attention positions, while Talen moved to the same peaceman position he had stood at earlier when he first arrived. The call doors opened at twice the normal speed. Dozens of Ray and shock troopers flooded in, creating 2 offensive formations in a semicircle around the Thutan residence. Once the troopers had fully assembled, a single figure began walking in from the causeway. Talen spoke directly to him, and it became clear to Hela who the man was. This was who Talen had called out to before the swarm of troopers arrived. Him! The new one! He's got the flame, just like her! It was as if Talen had become a completely different person. His air of simple ignorance was gone. Talen was a spy. I don't know which one it was for sure, he continued to spill, but they're both flame wielders. It could have been both of them. The man stopped beside Talen. He had a slender yet imposing build. Piercing silver Rayan eyes framed his shimmering gray hair. He wore some sort of official uniform that none of the Thutans had seen before. Very good, Thutan. Wait in the causeway. You'll be rewarded after we clean up this mess, he said coldly. As if on command, the Asperite led Talen out of the call, into the causeway. Skature called out, You know, Talen, there are very few reasons a Thutan should kill another Thutan, but at the top of that list is betrayal. The Rayan officer barked, Silence, you murderous dog! Oh, sir, don't you worry, Skature replied as he crouched down, eyes and chest shimmering red. You'll get yours, too. Before any of the troopers could react to a Thutan that shouldn't have been able to move, Skature shot off into the sky. Shock overtook the faces of every Rayan in Call 19, including Goden and Farah. However, both Senna and Hela grinned with anticipation. Mobile 1! Stop him! Get him! The Rayan officer shouted. The troopers to his left pointed all their sabers in the air, searching the sky for Skature. Even Hela tried to track him, but had to squint due to the sun. Wait! Cried one of the troopers, shading his eyes with his free hand. There! He pointed to a small speck against the sun that was dropping fast. The rest of his formation strained to make out what he had, but it was too late. A streak of white, like a bolt of lightning, shot down and smashed into the floor right at the feet of the officer. The impact was like a meteor hitting the floor. It exploded into a crater the size of a table, evaporating the Rayan officer in a cloud of blood where he stood and knocking several troopers onto their knees. Hela and the others also lost their footing. What? I fell? Hela thought. The floors! The explosion fractured them! Skature's freed us! All her callmates had clearly reached the same conclusion as Goden yelled, Run! Follow me! They scrambled to their feet while dust still hung in the air, heading for the sleep chambers at the rear of the call. Once in the corridor that connected their 5 sleep chambers, Goden stopped and grabbed Farah by the shoulders. Take the younger 2 to the far corner of the call, behind my chamber, and stay there. Cover your eyes and ears, do you understand me? Fear and concern were written on her face. Goden, what's happening? What are you gonna do? His eyes began to glow with the unvanquished flame of Grom. What I should have done for you and Andrel all those years ago. With that, he ran back towards the common to stand between his beloved youngsters and the wrath of Epol. Notes from the Acolyte. Even with Peacemen and optical nodes, there are Thutan secrets that only those within the culls can access. In the past, the Order randomly took slaves for questioning under the unforgiving blades of the Scepter of Peace. Under the intervention of the newest vassal of Sol, this practice has given way to seating Thutan spies throughout the culls. These spies have typically survived 1 or more questioning sessions and, as such, have become quite amicable to the proposition of spying for the Order rather than enduring any more questioning.